All right, good evening, everyone, depending on what time it is where you are. Um, and welcome to our Notebook LM, the easy custom toolkit for educators with Logix Academy. I guess I'll introduce myself first, if that's okay, Danny.
Yep.
I'm Mike Filippetti. I'm from Thunder Bay, Ontario, which is the Robinson Superior Treaty area of 1850. That got off, I apologize. I'm currently in Weagama Lake First Nation up north, North Caribou Lake First Nation. So welcome to everybody who's joining us, and I'll throw it over to you, Danny.
Thanks, Mike. Folks in this workshop should remember me from the last time, but if you don't, Danny Leeming, I am in Castlegar, BC right now. It is a beautiful mixed sun and cloud day out here in BC. I just raced home from work. I had an opportunity to kiss my brand new baby very briefly and then come back down to my office and sit down and get everything ready to go for this workshop. So just a reminder, I'm a teacher librarian. I do a Media Academy program. And if you want to stay connected, my Blue Sky link is there. And so is all Mike's information as well. Mike's a bit of a world traveler. He's always up to something. So really excited to see you guys for part 2. And good to see Tara Lee back in the chat. And the recording will be available afterwards. So we're good to go. I am coming to you from unceded territory. So my district's land acknowledgement is: we acknowledge, respect, and honor the First Nation in whose traditional territories the Kootenay Lake School District operates, and all Aboriginal people residing within the boundaries of School District 8. Now, no specific nations mentioned there because we are on unceded and contested territory between groups like the Ktunaxa, the Sinixt, the Confederated Tribes in Northern Washington. And I am in a location that is the subject of a very, very interesting Supreme Court of Canada case. So if you are interested, you can look up that Supreme Court of Canada case. It is called I can't remember the plaintiff's name, but there's a documentary on PBS called Older Than the Crown. So if you'd like to know about that disputed territory, there's a documentary called Older Than the Crown, and you can watch that, and it gives you the whole background of where we are. And of course, nativeland.ca is the place to go to find out where you are right now. And Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about where we're coming from?
Sure. So Logix Academy is hosting this, and they reach out and have excellent presenters just like Danny. So this is all on Notebook LM. I'm really looking forward to this. I've been using Notebook LM a lot, especially with Gemini, but I know you are more of an expert than I, so I'm really looking forward to seeing if I can pick up some new strategies when using it. And so I'll be monitoring the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and then I will try to interrupt you at a convenient spot as not to throw you off, Danny.
Feel free to interrupt me as needed, because once I get excited, I just go and go and go.
Great.
So I'm assuming you have watched the recording of part 1 of this workshop. So we started with a quick, an overview of the tool, what's possible, some ways to use it. This workshop is sort of showing off okay, you have this tool set. What can I actually sort of big picture build with it? And I've got some bits and pieces and some examples from my practice that I hope can spark some really good thinking. So I'm going to give my little privacy warning again. As educators right now, especially with AI tools, I think it's important to say at the beginning of every workshop, can you do what you're doing with the least amount of privacy disclosure possible? Can you strip names and data out? What is the least amount of information you can give up to achieve the goal that you're trying to achieve? And if you can't do it without some sensitive or potentially private information, does your IT department, privacy officer, principal, are they going to sign off and support that decision? So just be really mindful and thoughtful about when and how you're disclosing and what you're putting into the tools that you're putting into. I think that is a healthy thing. So getting started, obviously, notebooklm.google.com is where you want to go if you want to follow along. Feel free to throw me in another tab and open NotebookLM up on the side. And if you're watching live or watching the recording, the great thing is I can show you something. Me and Mike can talk about something, and then you can just pause us whenever. We're going to be here when you unpause us. You can come back, rewind a little bit. The stream will work either way, whether it's the stream or the recording. So just to recap our session 1 learning goals, we looked at NotebookLM. We talked about how do I add and select a resource? What can I do with the custom podcast tool? How do I customize my podcasts? What is a mind map and how do I make one with NotebookLM? What are some basic sort of like classroom planning type of strategies? How could I use it to help build a new course and create like a sort of a course binder? How can I create within an established course and what can I do with it? And then some basic differentiation stuff within that lesson. So one part I didn't mention in the last session, because I would consider this like taking a step out of I'm comfortable to, okay, now we're ready to use this at a bigger level. And just like a Google Doc, it has a share button in the top corner. That share button is quite powerful because it doesn't allow, like if you share a notebook and it's just a viewer permission, and you can see that right here. I've got my mouse cursor over there. So a viewer has read-only access to a notebook, which means they can use the notebook, but they can't change the sources. So if you wanted to create something that had multi-person purpose, but it's really important what's in there doesn't change, or it's really important that the things that are being managed in that notebook are managed carefully and mindfully, you could create a destination for teachers or staffs or teams or collaborators and keep edit access so that the sources remain verified. And I believe in the last session, I went through the fact that NotebookLM will say, I don't know if you ask it something. And the example I gave was if I load a bunch of stuff about the Mayan Empire into NotebookLM and I ask it about Air Jordans, it's going to say, I don't know, which is really powerful. And some of the examples I'm going to show you today are questions where you would really not want somebody to get a false positive answer with the content. So you can share the documents as owners that, let's say you're in a teaching triad and you want all 3 teachers to be able to add sources to that book. You could do that, but you can also add them as viewers, which lets them interact with the notebook and ask it questions, but not mess with the sourcing. So how would that come in handy? So the first example of sort of advanced use of NotebookLM I have is a class or cohort profile setup. So I've got templates today, and if Mike, I haven't short linked these, but Mike can drop them in the chat for you because I have some free templates. So what I've done is I've created a normal Google Doc. I'll open it up for you and we can share that. I'll share this tab once it's loaded. Pretty basic, right? Student names, strengths, stretches, interests, specific designation or diagnoses. Obviously, you wouldn't want names in here if it's got that sensitive information. But I'm not sure if the work of the middle years work of Dr. Leighton Schnellert has made it out to where you folks are who are watching at home, but he does a lot of work around middle years education, and he does these Who Am I profiles at the start of the year. So as you're bringing kids in, say in September, you could do like a Who Am I profile where kids sort of identify their strengths, their stretches, their interests. What do they like? What are they good at? What is hard for them? What is easy for them? And then you can, as the teacher, compare that up with this diagnosis info or specific learning challenge info. And then what do you do with it? So you create an anonymous setup using student 1, student 2, and put your class profile. And I've also got a template here for the Who Am I activity. So if you wanted to do that, There's a template here for setting up the Who Am I to gather that information from your students. I apologize for my narrated voice in there because there's audio instructions in there, but you can delete that out of there. So this is just a template. This is like an opening activity template that you could use. So you could gather that, transform it all into that document, and then add that class profile to your notebook of choice, filtering for personal info, and then you add your curriculum. We're not reinventing the wheel here. We're doing some pretty basic stuff, right? So this screenshot, it's a middle years program curriculum notebook I've built sort of speculatively. So we have hubs at my school, and they're called things like Bobcat, Lynx. We're the Wildcats, right? Go Wildcats. So we have Bobcats, Lynx, Cougar. That's our grade 7s and 8s. They all have a cat that they identify with. So I made this for our teachers. So you go Bobcats, you go Lynx, you put all the curriculum that they're covering together, and then we've got this class profile. And then you see I've dumped a lesson plan in there. And now what? So I've got all this information about my students. I can put a lesson plan I'm going to teach in, and then I can ask it questions like, the document links is a profile of my class students that includes their strengths, stretches, and any specific learning needs or disabilities. Can you comprehend the document? That's where I started. And yes, of course, it can comprehend the document. You know, it details students' individual strengths, blah, 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 blah. To provide the most effective and tailored suggestions, please share the Renaissance Art Development lesson plan with me once I have both student profiles. Da, 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 da. So then you ask it, can you apply what you know about the students in the Links Hub document and adapt the lesson plan found in the document Renaissance Art Development? So what I'm asking it to do on the fly is give me all the universal design stuff and tips, like what is going to work. Like, here's the lesson I hope to teach. What's going to work for the kids in my class, really actually based on every individual need. So there's general considerations that it's asking for. It's saying, oh, we're going to have to chunk some information. And then could you generate the contents of a specialized resource required for student number 9? So resource 1, brainstorming the story in art. So it's actually going to tailor the lesson plan and write it just for that one student. So you could ask it, hey, here's the lesson I'm doing. I need you to create the graphic organizer for student number 11. And it'll just spit that out for you and structure it in a way that's going to be effective for them. So once you have that profile built once, then you just have this machine that differentiates for student learning on the fly along with your course curriculum. I think that's pretty cool. And if you're teaching in a multi-age, multi-classroom program, all of a sudden you have this tool with all of it. So let's say you have 4 teachers teaching 4 hubs of grade 7 and 8, like at my school. In theory, they have that shared thing. All of their profiles are in there. Maybe one's taking sort of the science lead, one taking the math lead, one taking the socials lead. They can jump on, they have a shared notebook, and then all of a sudden, kaboom, hey, I've got a new math lesson in this morning. I asked it to quickly generate differentiation instructions for your hub because you're teaching it later. Boom, here you go. And then they can also work at independent times and get that differentiation work done. And it's all very fast, very quick, and very, very individualized to the actual kids in your classroom rather than just general work. I think that's pretty cool. Could you do the same for student 20? Yep, here you go. Boom, 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 boom. So it's like an oral instructions for taking oral feedback and changing the assignment into an oral assignment for that student. And there's what I was just talking about. So in team teaching, a shared notebook with multiple class profiles could be a home base for a teaching team to customize or design inclusively. You can use the Save as Note button, which we covered in the last session. I'll show that real quick. I can actually go into my MYP notebook. So if I have a big response here, tell me about the Bobcats. So if I get a response that I like, or like, let's say I get a version of this lesson plan that I like, the Jeopardy music would be nice here. Oh, notebook. This happened the last time I presented, actually. It was like, it didn't want to answer me. There we go. So if, let's say you get a version of the lesson plan for the Bobcat Hub, you can just hit save to note, and then that becomes the Bobcat version. New note saved, comprehensive source, da, 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 da. And then I could change the names. So let's say this was my lesson plan. I could say Renaissance. And if you're like a pretty slick student or a pretty slick co-teacher, you could just throw your lesson in, do the differentiation for your colleagues, and just save it as a note for them so they can just go grab it when they go to teach that morning. Away they go. Pretty neat stuff.
Maybe I'll jump in and just ask if there are any questions here.
That's a good opportunity for me to mute and take a sip of my beverage.
So far, so good?
I think so.
Okay.
So the next big example I have is reporting and report cards. This is one that comes up with AI fairly frequently. I don't think anybody is... The reason that people, I think, feel comfortable with AI supporting report card writing is because the way that we have to write report cards as teachers generally feels pretty assembly liney and robotic. You take your info and your data home, you sit for the weekend, and by the time, even as good as some of us are at writing report cards, if you're 45 kids into report cards, you're naturally going to start to sound a little bit samey from comment to comment and feedback piece to feedback piece. I think with NotebookLM, you can actually leverage report cards if you change your workflow from the start of the year and set yourself up, say, in September. And I feel like we're at the end of May right now. Professional development is ongoing. But I think a lot of teachers, their minds are like, how am I going to set up and get ready for next year? What tweaks or changes could I implement next year? So this is quite timely because you can think about how to set it up over the summer. So what I mean by workflow is, instead of making report cards a weekend job, what if using these tools, report cards became a bit of an ongoing observational data collection practice? And they are, right? They are. We all know the stuff that we're doing over the 5 months. But when you're sitting down, in my basement office in January, and you might forget things, really great things that happened in the middle of October in term 1 with that kid that doesn't talk a lot, sits in the back. So I've got another template here, and I'll show that. It's just very simple stuff. I call this the Friday notes template. So here's my student. I wouldn't have the grade in there till the very end. Strengths, areas that need improvement, next steps, anecdotes, best piece of work or area of growth. And every Friday you could sit down and you don't have to do every kid, you don't have to do every class, but you just sort of take 10 minutes before you walk out on Friday afternoon, and you just like, oh, what happened this week? Oh yeah, sort of this happened, this kid sort of nailed this project. This kid had a big sort of trip up on this thing. This really funny story happened with this kid that was really charming and heartfelt and neat. Those are all really great, in the moment, contemporaneously written notes that inform a 5-month full picture of this kid. And so I've got these obviously I've got my fake country singer contributors here. And so you take that sucker, and then I've got, this is my personal thing. So I've got some curriculums here. So this is like my media arts class. This is my personal grading philosophy as well, I throw in here. So like, how do I pick a number for your child? What are the numbers I'm going to pick? What are the criteria I'm using? The actual school grading criteria, it's a website. So I add that there, throw my curriculums in there, and I just sort of add these Friday note docs into this thing. So what you end up with is this data, and this language from your curriculum, and then you can say, please write a report card comment for every student in semester 1, term 1, Media Arts 12 that reflects the curriculum, my grading philosophy, and the included observational comments from the document. Please do not exceed 400 words for each comment and format. Format them in the same order in which they appear in the document, and do not include their name. Rather, please refer to them as student 1, student 2, etc. Again, privacy at the forefront. So a sample report card. And this is about a real student in my class with anonymized names. So kind of hard to see on the screen, but I'll read it to you. So student 2 is a talented artist who is transitioning their skills to digital platforms. They are working towards their goal of graphic storytelling through comics using the Adobe suite. Student 2 demonstrates strong applied technology skills as they are exploring existing, new, and emerging tools, technologies, and systems like the Adobe suite to evaluate their suitability for design interests. In line with reciprocal relationships, student 2 is encouraged to continue to learn from other media arts professionals. This will support the development, maintenance, and evolution of their voice and storytelling. To refine their technical skills, student 2 is encouraged to focus on developing their skills on the PC for long-term skill development. In addition, student 2 should focus on increasing their pace of work. That's a pretty good report card comment, and it really does tie into, like, who is this kid? What are they doing? How are they connecting with the material? Where are they going with it? And I've got another example. It's actually in another template, and maybe I'll dig it up in a bit, but it writes these just incredible comments. Like when you give it the real live data, it'll write these just incredible comments. It'll make reference to the funny story you didn't remember from October. It'll include all that information. And I'm a big person that I think AI has to be just a tool for us as educators. It's one thing to pull out of the toolbox, and we have to remain the human thinkers that are doing all the actual cognitive work. But this jives for me because it's actually doing a better job at capturing my thoughts, my observations, and my professional opinions of a student. And it takes that weekend job. And I bet you over the course of a semester, you're kind of doing the same amount of work. It's just not in one weekend sitting. And it's really actually making a more holistic, wider view of the student. Assembly lining. It makes a better picture of the student for this report card comment. Because I actually think report card comments are very important and very valuable for assessing and communicating learning to students and families and parents. And this turns your weekend job into, a little bit of editing and you're done. Like it'll spit out a whole class in 20 seconds. I'm tempted to show you it in action. But I'm also like, do I have real student names in there right now? Report card notebook. I think I have fake ones in here.
Why don't I take your screen off? There you go. So
yeah.
You are now, and maybe while you're looking, I'm really intrigued by this because I think like having conversations about using AI and assessment, it can go in a multitude of directions, but this isn't assessment. So you've done your assessment strategy. And I like the fact that it's possible for us when we're writing report cards. Hopefully it's a slim chance, but it depends. Did I write your report card this Friday or last Friday? Because hopefully you don't vary away from your philosophy of education that you've set up. And this is more just a safety net because ultimately you're verifying these before you submit the report card too. Can I put the screen back up?
Let me.
No worries. You can too, I guess. But.
Yeah, let me I'll paste a comment into something. I'll put it in my template to read you guys.
Like I'm assuming you have the ability in your report card software program to upload these comments and have it in that data bank. And then when it comes to report card time, you can just input them from there? Or are you doing it manually comment by comment from your file to the report card software?
The service that we use. Oh, I'm messing my template up. The service that we use. I have to do it one by one.
Okay.
But that's the LMS is failing, not the notebook. So if you put my screen back up now, it actually didn't do a great job because I wrote the prompt really fast. Okay. So here's an actual student that it wrote a report card for. Oh, I got to share this tab instead. So extremely comfortable in the media art space, excellent growth, particularly in graphic design, demonstrated maturity, working with a team on district film projects, acting as a leader. Areas that need improvement: managing time and commitments to avoid burnout, needs to consider if any tasks can be put down, focus on time management strategies. So if I asked it, like, I would obviously be iterating on this prompt and just say, like, I wrote a fast prompt just to demo it. Anecdotes: this had an excellent start to the semester, shows growth year over year and continues to pursue it. Contribution to district film projects has been invaluable. So-and-so has a lot on his plate right now. Growth in graphic design is extending. Leadership and quality control on district film projects, consistent growth year over year. If it stitched that together in a more nuanced way, like, it's making reference to everything that I'm watching him do. It's making reference to his specific strengths and skills, where he needs to go next. And when I think about, it's hard for you as the audience or you as Mike to know, but like, when I think about that kid, like, it's like, it is that kid. It is nailing who that kid is. And it requires it's saving me a lot of singular time to do report cards. I think the product is better. And I think the work-life balance is better, if that makes sense. It's the same amount of work, but the balance of the doing is way easier. And I'm not writing a comment for that kid every week. I'm writing 4 or 5 Fridays in a year. I'll be like, oh yeah, he did that this week. And I think it just becomes a way broader look at how a student is performing and analyzing and growing as a person, when you're not surrounded by data and marking and a deadline to get that thing out the door and into the LMS to publish a report card on time. Very powerful. Remind me, Mike, we're going till 5 my time or 4:30? 4:30? Okay. We're going a little bit big picture now. So that's report cards. If there's any report card questions, just drop them in the chat and we can stop and go back. But I think another NotebookLM superpower is department, district, and board governance tools. And I can hear you all cheering from where you are and thinking, like, yes, board governance. Classroom teachers love this stuff. But I think this is actually a really great idea in terms of, like, the power of a tool. So if you're a vice principal, you probably spend a lot of time on a district website somewhere looking at APs and policy and procedure and scrolling through big, long, comprehensive lists of PDF documents and being like, where the heck is the document about how to have a dog at school? I need that right now because I have not yet memorized it. This is if there's any admin or district admin in the chat or watching the session, this one has been a big hit whenever I've shown it. So this is a district policy manual for teachers and on-site administrators, and it could be adapted for lots of different stuff. So I went to your board's website and I took a screenshot. It is a very nicely organized website. Most district websites are very well put together, very clean, very well organized. But I note there's lots of APs here, and they're all important. But I want my vice principal or principal to not have to search through them all the time manually. So in a hurry, time consuming, to scroll to find the policy and related APs to deal with an emergent matter. What if we had a digital assistant to run down all the interconnected policies? Because there's probably an AP for the thing you're looking for, but there's probably another AP that overlaps and intersects with it in some divide. Mike, you were an administrator for a long time, correct? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. Yes, I was a principal for 10 years. and this is where I'm using NotebookLM right now, because I'm doing a lot of consulting for policy. So I'm working with different organizations. Either they'll have suggestions on, we need a policy for this, or revamp our entire policy manual. So I have policies flushing through my head, but I can't remember which organization they're for, because although they're similar, they have their own intricacies. But so I'll have basically a notebook LM for the organization that I'm working with, and I can just query it to say, what's the policy on, like, how many sick days does someone get, or how many bereavement days? And if I think of myself back as a principal, it's just a much easier way to find the answer to it, because it will link to it. So if you want to check to make sure it knows what it's talking about, it will connect.
Totally.
And what I would really have loved is the Education Act. So in Ontario, there's the Ontario Education Act. It's been around forever. And we used to I used to do it every 2 or 3 years, just because, not so much cost, although it was, I think, $200 for the book, but it was a thick manual. But I would put those arrow tabs in to the pages that I needed the most, that I would always reflect back on, usually student discipline. And now, then it went to PDF, which is great because you can do just a Control F and find something, but you need to find a word if you're using Control F, or a phrase that isn't going to show up 80 times. Now it doesn't matter. You just query with the question that you're looking for, and it's going to pull up the exact information that you need.
Exactly. So what I've done is I went through, like, the website that St. Paul Education has. All those are individual PDFs. I'm sure somebody has all the PDFs sitting in a folder somewhere, nicely organized. But NotebookLM, we covered last session, it's got 50 source limit. So what you do is you take all your APs and you use Adobe Acrobat. I've got the tool highlighted there, combine PDF files. You smash them all into one giant PDF, and then you upload them as a source to Notebook. So I went through, I did all my district's board policy. I did all the administrative procedures. I did all of our inclusive education protocols. And then I went a little bit deeper. So I have the full British Columbia School Act, so our legislation. I've got the Labor Relations Code. I've got the collective agreements for all of our union groups in the district. I've got the UNDRIP stuff. I've got the district strategic plan. I've got the Canadian Charter. I've got all relevant WorkSafe BC legislation and regulations. And it's all just sitting there. And now what can I do? These are hard to read a little bit. You'll probably be able to see them. But so now if you're a vice principal, you can do stuff like, I have a student who is demonstrating potentially harmful online behavior, posting videos and explicit content, sharing with other students. I am inviting his parents in for a conversation. Can you find me all relevant SD8 policy and procedures I need to consider and that I should share with his parents? Please reference specific policy documents. And out pops this very nice list, AP 1201, AP 1202, AP 1206, AP 32, and it quotes the section that I'm going to need to talk to parents about. Also goes down code of conduct, duty of care, and then it gives me some guide for sharing the information with the parents. And if I want, I could then turn that around. Hey, could you summarize all this in sort of accessible, plain language for a non-educator, and do a short summary that I could append into my email? And it's going to shrink that down. And then when the parents come in, you've got it right there in front of them. Hey, this is what's happening. Here's why it's a problem for the school and the school system. What can we do to right the situation? And to just go and look through, like, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different APs there. And those are not the short APs, right? The school codes of conduct are multi-page documents. To find the right little sections is a very long, time-consuming process. Let's get the VP out of scrolling through all that work and get them spending more time talking to the families. Same thing on the other example. Today in our junior high program, 2 students were involved in a physical altercation that was sudden, unplanned, and resulted in only minor and non-threatening injury. We have decided to send them home for a day and have a re-entry meetings with both sets of parents individually. Can you craft an email home to let parents know the process and reference the relevant policy and procedure documents as part of that email to let them know why this is happening and the next steps? That communication, there is going to be some formal stuff. And you also want to make sure that that communication is quoting and saying the right words in the right way. And this will do that. And if you ask it a question that it doesn't know, NotebookLM will tell you, I don't know. Or if it sounds like it's not quite right, it has the footnotes to link you back to the original document and jump you right. It's control Fing every PDF in your district, essentially. And able to search without precise words. It looks for context. It is an incredibly powerful tool for people to lock in on. And let's say you're at a board office position, you can build this and then you can just send it out to all your admin or department heads or whoever you want to have access to it and give them view access. They can't change the sources, but now they have this essentially, St. Paul education search engine that's going to allow them to just like accelerate the speed at which they can do their work with families and kids. And I think that's pretty neat. And like I said, important, it cites and links you back to the relevant policy with its response. So, a parent has complained about a teacher on my staff not, quote unquote, teaching math. I just threw random stuff at it, right? They've yet to contact the teacher about it. Based on the attached policy and procedures, please respond to the parent with reference to the process in the documentation about how they should best go about voicing their concerns in an appropriate way. So how do we, reference the communication protocol, reference to this AP and that AP? I like to ask it weird questions because we have rules about like pets and dogs and stuff and see what it comes up with. Please write us a positive and supportive email to the staff member to outline their next steps to allow and approve their dog request. So it's like, boom, here's all the steps you need to bring the dog to school. Because I doubt the dog policy is one anybody has memorized, though a lot of it has somehow stuck in my mind for some reason.
Were you denied bringing your dog to school?
No, I don't.
No, I just wondered how you know it off my head.
I'm a weird guy that reads all the APs as they get passed at board meetings.
I'm the same way. I wasn't that way, but I have a colleague that I worked with when I was a vice principal, and I became a policy hound. So
our pet policy
exciting.
When they had a section about nocturnal animals, I was like, oh, I'm in on this. They thought of everything. So this is like coaching a staff member, right? A teacher is asking me to remove a student with significant learning disabilities from their class. The class is Physics 12 in British Columbia and are saying the student will never be successful. Please outline what policies the teacher and I must consider to resolve this request according to the ST8 policy and procedures, and also consider any potential collective agreement implications in the KLTF agreement. So now we're crossing policy and union documentation, job stuff. Like it's mixing and matching all of that and giving you the topical overview to start that conversation. And it's got links to everything. So you don't have to scroll, you don't have to look, you're just diving in and getting right to where you need to go. And you can scroll up and down. I have a new baby, and I used this the other day because I was like, I got to take my kid for a doctor's appointment. Do I file that under a sick day? Do I use family responsibility time? And I just went, this is what I'm doing. What do I put in for my sick leave reason in SmartFind Express? And it was like, boom, here you go. So it's so helpful at kind of every level of your organization. And I think it's a great tool for human resources to have, HR to have, sorry, repetitive, but HR, the union probably loves having this because everybody's sort of working out of the same set of stuff. And it's just a way to share information that there's a lot of information and it's impossible to know it all.
I think you could probably, like going back to your report card analogy where you had your marking philosophy as a separate document that was uploaded as a source document into NotebookLM. As an administrator, you could have the same thing, so that you could put things in place. So in the event of a student discipline issue, such as this, and this, it would trigger a violent incident report. It would trigger having to notify staff of a particular situation. I'm talking high school. So it could tell you that. So when you're querying it, it would say, reminder, you need to do this as well.
Yeah, and maybe you throw an extra doc in there that's like, when any of these things happen, this must happen. What's missing from mine right now is like a duty of care manual, right? And like a Ministry of Children and Families like reporting manual.
Yep.
That would be an incredibly helpful thing to throw in there, because it's going to kick off right away. Like, you must call. Like, don't even tell it. Like, I don't know how it works province to province, but in BC, it's like you must call.
Yep.
You don't even tell your principal. You must call yourself. You can't pass it off to somebody else. That type of thing.
Yeah, it would be the same thing. And then with collective agreements, the number of sick days depends on which collective agreement you're under. You might have 5, 6, 7 different unions or collective agreements. So it would be very easy to just put in, I have a member of this organization. How many bereavement days do they get? Or depending on family member. So because each collective agreement would be.
It kind of becomes a Q&A bot for HR questions too, right? Like me the other day being like, what do I put in, right? I saved an email to somebody who's going to be like, this guy, what's he asking me for, right? It's able to quickly respond to that and just like reduce that amount of like extra mental overhead that everybody has to deal with in a complex organization.
Yeah, great.
Here's another example that is very useful. I think it's another like sort of big picture example. So I teach Career Life Connections 12 in BC, which is like the I'm in grade 12 and where am I going next class? And kids come up to us and ask us all kinds of, I teach it, we do all our grade 12s together. So it's me and a co-teacher. And they come up and they go, I want to go to nursing in wherever. Where can I go? And just stare at us. Where can I go? And it's like, well, I don't have every university memorized, but NotebookLM can help us out. So I took this isn't complete, but it's just a screenshot to get an idea. So I took every view book for every university I could get my hands on in BC. So Capilano, Langara, University of Fraser Valley, BCIT, Camosun, Selkirk, TRU, UNBC, UVic. UBC is a little too big to have one now, I guess, but shared that with like sort of our post-secondary team. And then I can ask it questions now. So a kid comes up to me now and goes, hey, I'm a domestic student in British Columbia, Canada. I'm interested in going in a Bachelor of Science program. The student has an 80% in English Studies 12, and they have taken Physics 11 and 12 with a grade of 72%, Chemistry 11 with 88%. Where can they actually get into? And it's going to they don't have to go searching for every school that offers physics now. It's actually going to surface all the programs that they meet the minimum requirements for and have the programs that they're interested in. And what I would say is it's not going to answer all their questions. It's just going to get them like in the door and like really narrow the field down to like, okay, UNBC is going to be an option for me. Thompson Rivers is going to be an option for me. And then they can go off and explore those websites and decide, is the school a fit? Do I want to live in Prince George? Do I want to live in Kamloops? And ask those kinds of questions. You can also ask it sort of more questions. Like this would be like a teacher question. Can you create a chart laying out all the application windows for all the universities in BC? Please include application open dates, closing dates, early admission dates, entry scholarship dates, etc. in your timetable. And it just spits out all of this data. And now instead of us trying to track all of these different universities, because they will tell us their individual dates. I don't know all of the dates, but now I can do this, print it out, and then just slap that or post it in Google Classroom and just say, hey, this is when stuff happens. If you're trying to get entry scholarships for UVic, you have to hit this application deadline or you're missing out on X number of dollars or X number of opportunities. And it'll even do the sort of thing like BCIT is open enrollment in so many programs. Hey, we might not have this quite right, basically is what it's saying. Check the guide. And so it's going to spit all that out, but that's really useful information for a kid in September in grade 12 being like, where am I going? What am I doing? What do the timelines look like? How am I going to do that? This is another good one. Another student from BC, it's transfer. So like, how can I get from one place to another? Or how can I I'm going to start at Selkirk College, which is our community college here. I have another student from BC who's wanting to eventually get a bachelor's degree in engineering and will be applying to the Selkirk College pre-engineering program for their first and second year. Please give the student an idea of which schools and the requirements for them to transfer out at the end of Selkirk. So it's going to say, okay, TRU and UVic are where you can go after. Here's what that looks like. And then it references you to the lookbook, to like the transferring student section, so that they can go right there. Rather than going to what would happen in the past, go to every engineering website for every university that they know offers engineering and sort of poke around and see, read the tea leaves. I love my post-secondary experience. I'm employed by a post-secondary institution on the side, but I think I can safely say universally that university websites are all a little bad. Like they're all just a little bit confusing and a little bit different, and there's no rhyme or reason to how they're set up. And it makes trying to find your info like a needle in the haystack. And this just surfaces all the pertinent dates and stuff right to the surface for kids. Whew. How much time we got left? We got 12 minutes left. So that's another one. You can set that up. Like if you have a career education department in your district, or a careers team or a transitions team, they can set up that lookbook portal with notebooks, send it out to all your career ed teachers, and then they just have this portal that's searchable. They could even send it to families, right? If kids have a login, they could go look on it themselves. There's no harm or foul in that.
Mike? So now I'm going to switch from being co-host to guest and inquisitor. So are you just entering the main website for a university?
What I've done,
and it's able to query all the other subpages, or no?
So what I've done is, remember, like back in the day, the print course catalogs that universities would send out. So the academic calendar is okay. So I've gone to the websites, downloaded the PDF academic calendar for the following year, and thrown that in there.
Yeah.
And so it's way more comprehensive than the website. In terms of like when you add a website to Google or NotebookLM, it's just going to do that one page that you're looking at. It's not going to dive through links and look through stuff. So I went and I found the course catalog.
Okay.
This is searchable IEP supports mind map. So this is a big project that I started playing with. It is not complete yet, but I've created like a speculative sort of what if document. So it's not complete. We showed mind maps the other day. And so what I've done is I use ChatGPT essentially, or Copilot, or whatever, name your LLM of choice. I used it to generate this very detailed IEP differentiation guide. So do I know the IEP data in here is sound? It's pretty close, but the same way that like just asking for a generated response from AI is you're not 100% sure it's deadly accurate. But what I wanted to test was, how would I format a document the right way for a mind map to pick it up exactly the way I wanted? And so I can switch over to my notebook. So here's the document. So this is all generated. So like I said, I don't know if the advice is sound, but what it's really doing, what I figured out in playing with the mind map feature, you can see this is a 53-page Google Doc, is the way you classify your text is basically hooks the mind map to different levels. So if you come up with a very standardly formatted document, and school districts, they're good at standardly formatted documents. So heading 1, normal text, normal text. This is, okay, heading 1, heading 3, normal text. heading 3. So each section is sort of broken into the same sort of like category, subheading, detail. And if I look at the document outline, it's got nice structure to it. Category A, Category B. This is the BC IEP categories. So, and then each one has specialized teaching strategies, accommodations, modifications, support personnel, behavior support for every diagnoses or IEP category in the province. I threw that into NotebookLM. And then I made it generate a mind map. And so what that really coherently organized document is going to do now is I now have a shareable interactive support matrix. And so let's say I've got a student with autism spectrum. It's going to break out all of those subheadings for me. Specialized teaching strategies, all the specialized teaching strategies. Let's go alternative communications. And what actually the mind map does is it basically generates automatic conversation prompts for the notebook to then prompt you back into the conversation. So it gets you down into the information that you want really fast. So I'm just going to close that. So I went to specialized communication strategies for autism spectrum disorder, and it just pumped out all of this information for me on demand. So if I was a IST learning support, I don't know, whatever acronym you're using in your context. If you had a centralized version of this mind map, I'm going to open my mind map again. If you had a centralized version of this mind map where you have a Google Doc that you can continually update, and you have your specialist, right? Your itinerant teacher of the deaf and blind, or itinerant teacher for physical disabilities or physio. They can go in and they can like pour their genius into this document. They can put the latest and greatest teaching strategies that they're recommending. You can have a section for educational technology accommodation, so apps that they want to use. And they can just update that one document, hit the share button on Notebook right there, and then that can go out to schools, and they can't mess with the content, but then they've got everything at their fingertips to be like, oh, I just got this new student. I saw that they have this diagnosis. Oh, they're deaf and hard of hearing. What kind of accommodations am I looking for? Are they getting modifications? Modified language arts curriculum? Boom. And it's going to produce that document for me. And again, that Google Doc, it's the same info, but the interactivity of the mind map feels like a much easier sift and sort process as a frontline staff. But you've got the big picture organizational thinking going into a real-time updated IEP use case scenario for this. And this, like I said, this document is all a speculative sort of game, a field testing sort of like, hey, what would this look like? How would it perform? What would it interact with? But for me, it proved what I was after in that, ooh, this is really interesting. This is really engaging. What if we had our really great experts in our district dump their best info into this document? And then it's just always there and always updated. Pretty cool, pretty interesting, pretty powerful, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's fantastic. 6 minutes, just so you know.
So there's a screenshot of it working. I put the screenshot in just in case Notebook was being a little slow. All the different levels there. So again, it just takes you to the conversation that you want to have. So discuss what these sources say about personalized learning and vision aids in the larger context of accommodations for the deaf and the blind. So it's like going into all the detail, talks about cochlear implants, hearing aids, etc. And then again, like if you had a district approved list of apps for those students, that would also be one of the tabs. And it could just be like, what tools am I using to get this going? And then you could even put like, how do I use this tool stuff into that context? and just drill down even further. So if you are watching the recording, now is when you press pause and you go play. And if you're here live in person and you have any questions that you want to ask before we get to sort of the wrap up parts, feel free to ask as we're doing that. But if you're sitting and you're really have some burning questions, you can throw them in the chat right now. Other than that, I've ended on time. I'm getting better at ending. Usually I like talk excitedly and run out of stuff or run out of time and have 10 more things I want to show, but I'm getting better. I'm getting better at that.
No, that was fantastic. So yeah, any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Looks like we're pretty good to keep going.
End of the slideshow. I've just got some this is a Google Doc that I just throw in all my slides now because it's somebody operating. It's just a Google Doc with a table of like all the AI stuff in education because there's so many things. And it's just like, oh, you can just kind of scroll through and find stuff and see what's up. Thanks, Tara Lee. And I've also got Microsoft has this like GitHub thing where it's got like a database of prompts on GitHub that you can use for education on Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever you want. And a book, some books and reading for AI in the classroom. And I think that's it. Oh, I don't have the slides at the very end, but we'll go back to that one.
Okay, so thank you. That was very informative. Yeah, I picked up a lot myself, and now I'll probably be delayed watching the hockey game tonight because there's some notes that I have to push forward as far as sharing. Like I want to create my own set of documents that I can just share with organizations so that they don't have to. I think that's a great service just to help spur questions for policies. So yeah, I have a couple sessions next week. So
perfect.
You've given me some good stuff.
For that work, you could also put in policies from an organization, and then when they're writing new stuff, make the language align across all the policies. Like that's such an important part of that work.
Yep.
Make sure the word choices are all similar. That's really critical. And I think just having that extra set of eyes, the robotic eyes, is really helpful. Anyways, thanks so much to you folks for watching or those watching the recording. I rushed home and I'm glad I made it because that was fun.
Yep. And thank you to Logix for providing this, Logix Academy. Thank you, Danny. And we'll see you at one of our next sessions. Take care, everybody.